Oh no, it's a Sith Lord. I don't know how they're gonna beat him. This is another problem with these movies. They don't do anything drastically different. I know people say this a lot, but I don't think this like understand just how important that is. They have to do something really like completely different. I think Quinton Reviews was discussing how combat would change a lot in 30 years in any universe. Like they would use a lot more advanced. I don't know something some kind of change with the combat in space and all that. And also a good example of a long-lasting series is Dragon Ball Z. I mean, it has its problems, but it managed to keep introducing interesting things, so the fans would stay loyal. Think about how each villain was introduced. I think Cell is a great example. Like the first time you see him, he's sucking the life out of like a human. That's interesting because it's new and kind of shocking in some ways. Honestly, there are so many moments in that show where I really doubt any child would enjoy it.
Not too bright, are you, boy?
Which they clearly did, but I mean, every next villain, except I guess Majin Buu, even Majin Buu had some interesting like scenes, like interesting new scenes. But better examples of that are like Lord Beerus or uh, even someone like even someone like Moro. I mean, there aren't enough examples for sure. I mean, Dragon Ball has a lot of problems, but they've managed to keep the fans somehow engaged in the universe, even though like many of them criticize it a lot these days. So yeah, that's good. And once again, Dragon Ball itself doesn't change enough. It keeps doing the same things over and over too in some ways, but I mean, way better than Star Wars. I mean, I think one of the reasons that Star Wars is dying is because they just don't have the vision. I mean, some people say that Star Wars is really limited in terms of its world and all that, but I don't think that's true for any series except like Terminator because the timeline is so messed up. I think you can do a lot of things with Star Wars. You just need to stop putting yourself in all these limits. Introduce a new power that isn't the Force. Why not? I mean, any series that lasts this long definitely does it. Like I mean, the best example is the best examples are shown in anime. If anything has to last this long, I mean, take Marvel, the MCU. Like, there's so many like different things in there. There's like Doctor Strange magic, which has some kind of scientific explanation to it. And there's robots. There's like Asgard, like that kind of magical stuff. You have to keep adding new things consistently at least. I do think that the idea of having a stormtrooper character for the first time was kind of good. To actually have a stormtrooper be a character, that was a well used opportunity. Oh, it's the worst character that could have been great. I don't actually care who Rey's parents are. Uh, I mean, as long as it makes sense, because as far the Force as a like a power to introduce is really poorly defined. Because whenever something unlikely happens because of the Force, like especially in the new trilogy where it just picks a random person to get the power.
They're filthy junk traders who sold you off for drinking money. The dead in a pauper's grave in the Jakku Desert. You have no place in this story. You come from nothing. You're nothing.
Absolute madland!
Like that was just so convenient. If you add some kind of really significant power in a series, you have to have some like limiting rules so that it just can't do anything. I mean, unless you're making One Punch Man. Like the idea of the force itself just choosing someone, like that's kind of off-putting. I like it when a series just has like an organic feel to it, where no one really has any control over the actions or like the events, like including some kind of like bigger force. I mean, yeah, some series is like Death Note that have like people have a like a fate or whatever, but then again that could be changed based on how you use the Death Note. It's the same as with all those like horror movies where the ghost just does things for no reason. Like he'll just shut the door or pull someone's leg. You just wonder, is it actually evil or is it just a prankster? And it's just so confusing in some ways. And it's the same thing with the Force. Fun fact. This is actually the first Star Wars movie I watched. I had no context. I didn't know what the Force was. I didn't know who Darth Vader was. I didn't know who Luke was. It was so confusing. Kylo Ren is so pathetic, and I'm wondering if it was intentional in this movie. I mean, it's definitely intentional in the next one, but but in this one, especially in the scene where he just tells the stormtroopers to kill all the villagers, where it really wouldn't have achieved anything, was so weird. Like he was trying to show how cool he was or something. It's childish. And I was wondering if that was what J.J. Abrams was thinking. They probably should have made Rey a bit more dumb. That's always funny. Like you see it in every anime. I mean, no matter how overdone it is, as long as they do it right, it's fine. I mean, she did grow up without education. It should make a lot more sense. One of the problems I have with most shows and movies is that there aren't enough bad guy characters. There are a lot of bad people, and there'll always be one main villain. But the people who work in the First Order and stuff, I wish they were more fleshed out, so it would be it would seem more even. I mean, it's not like a serious problem. It's just my personal preference. But you look at something like Hunter x Hunter, and there's just as much bad people as there are good people, and that just makes the world seem a bit more organic and closer to reality, even despite all its fantasy elements. And to be more specific, I don't want just bad people to be there. I want them to be actual characters, actual fleshed out characters. Which is why I like Guardians of the Galaxy. It has questionable personalities in it. That wasn't the worst reveal. I mean, there's so much mystery right now. I mean, I wish they gave a better explanation as to how it got there. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This scene would be a lot more... it would have a lot more weight if that guy was actually a character. There's that SNL skit. It's an Undercover Boss parody with Kylo Ren.
Look, I found Kylo Ren's lightsaber. Look at it up close.
Dude, that thing looks dangerous, man.
And that made Kylo Ren seem a lot more brutal than any of these movies. Because he actually kills people who we care about. I mean, in that skit, I mean, it's an SNL skit, so you don't care about them that much. But you care about them more than the people he kills in this. I mean, except Han Solo, I guess. But that's a whole other story. How did the cast of the raid, how did they get killed by the Rat Stars while Harrison Ford outran them? what is it, storing it for winter or something? I hate when this happens. I mean, whenever like a monster catches a main character, it always takes its time. But when it's a side character, it's just instant death. She really is a Mary Sue, isn't she? I mean, I'm fine with really competent and overpowered characters sometimes. What was Goku before he fought Master Roshi for the first time? I have to make them likable.
How old are you anyway? It's not polite to ask a lady her age. Right, so how old are you?
Or like you have to explore something interesting with them. They have to have depth basically, which Rey really doesn't have. I mean, she's just like a good person. Like that's just her character. Maybe they'll do something in episode 9 with like exploring the darkness in her or something. I mean, once again, that's nothing that hasn't been done. I mean, she's definitely the main character in that one. So I really wonder what they're doing with that. They really shouldn't have introduced this guy at all, man. I mean, Star Wars at this point, especially after like the Revenge of the Sith, the existence of someone who can use the Force is just so significant because they're like so rare. I mean, I haven't seen the cartoons, but I mean, Luke Skywalker was actually the last Jedi.
When gone am I? The last of the Jedi will you be?
In episode 6. And they made a big deal out of like Rey and Kylo Ren, I feel, in a way, but it's supposed to be impressive that they exist. But Snoke, it's just, I mean, some people are defending the subversion in episode 8 by saying, I mean, who cares,
And kills his true enemy.
He was just a plot device or whatever. That's the thing, he shouldn't have been a plot device. He should have been actually significant if they're introducing him. Like, he should be significant. Since he's a Force user. Why isn't the First Order just the Empire? Why didn't they just name it the Empire? I mean, because they have the same soldiers. They have everything's the same. Like, why even bother with a different name? I mean, they even believe in the same things, I guess. Just follow whoever's the strongest Force users. And one interesting thing they could have done with Rey was like she started being able to use the Force since she was a kid, and then she just became a real asshole because of it, because of the ego of having power. I mean, I don't know if you've seen The Boys, but that's what that whole show is about, of superheroes just becoming terrible people because of the powers they have. I mean, that would have been cool,
Golly gee shucks, what makes you think I would give two fucks about that?
Even if the good guy was kind of an asshole, I mean, I know being an asshole naturally leads to the dark side or whatever. I mean, that would have been nice if she was just tiptoeing in the border throughout her arc, which she doesn't have. She doesn't have an arc that's satisfying, by the way. I mean, I guess she finds out her parents or whatever, something nobody's. And that's not an arc. Who cares who your parents are? Especially for a character like Rey. I mean, I guess you care who Luke's dad is or whatever. But Luke did have other Force students, right?
I took him. And a dozen students.
Where did Luke find just random kids who could use the Force? Kids, plural. But now she can use the Force too? Or he or whatever? I mean, I wish they made the Force a lot more, Force users a lot more rarer. One would emerge every 100 years or something. Without genetics or whatever. If genetics does actually have something to do with it. This is so obvious. This guy's a cartoon character. Oh, now he cares? I mean, all of this would be so much better if Rey was just interesting. I mean, you don't even have to make someone complex for them to be like compelling or interesting. You just have to like make them at least intriguing for a start. Uh, I mean, this characters like Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, or someone like that you just can't get enough of because they're just so intriguing. They're so simple too, not complex at all. But every time they show up, you're just so interested in what's happening. I mean, they say that this movie is a Xerox copy of A New Hope, but it hasn't given us like nearly enough interesting like elements as it. I mean, Ray is boring as hell. Even Luke, as simple as he was in like that first movie, I mean, I was interested in what he was doing. Like he was new, and he was slightly flawed as well. And then like Princess Leia makes fun of his height. That was fun. Like what Ray is just freaking. I mean, she's basically Captain Marvel. I mean, except that movie was just completely irredeemable. And Captain Marvel is a lot more hateable, a lot more like obviously hateable. I am glad Poe's alive, but he's just the way they went about bringing him back is so weird. Wait, did he just assume she remembers every detail of a map of the galaxy? Or like a piece of the galaxy?
If you look at, for example, what we call the radio bubble, this is the sphere around Earth, centered on Earth, which is the farthest our radio signals have reached in the galaxy. And they're about 70 light years away. We've been transmitting radio signals inadvertently leaking into space for about 70 years. 70 light year radius sphere. Well, how big is the galaxy? Well, shrink that sphere down to maybe the size of a BB, and then the galaxy on that scale would be the size of this stage.
What I liked about the A New Hope, I mean, it didn't like overdo anything. I mean, there's no moments where like I don't get why this person cares so much about this other person. I mean, there's nothing like that in the New Hope. I mean, A New Hope. I mean, you just look at this moment where Finn's just like, yeah, it's kind of weird. It's really like off-putting. I actually really like C-3PO. I think he's cool. I'm not. Like, I think he's fun. I mean, there's that scene in The Last Jedi, right? Of Leia saying she knows that her son is gone or whatever, and she keeps a like a really straight face and all that. I mean, moments like that throughout the series would have been so much better if they just made a movie of Luke training the Jedi. That was the obvious place to start, right? That was a safe place to start. I mean, why did they think that they should just copy A New Hope? I mean, that movie is kind of old. I mean, I've heard. I mean, it did age well. It aged well, but people keep saying that if A New Hope released today, it would freaking flop. And probably the reason for that is A New Hope, because it just inspired so many things, and there's so many similar things to that these days. Like all the space travel and all that. Even like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's kind of similar to Star Wars in a way. So they really needed to like up their game to set Star Wars apart from everything else. I mean, just this movie's connection with the original trilogy like really isn't enough. It really wears thin fast. I mean, I'm all for letting the past die as long as the future is good. You know?
You still want to kill me?
That happens when you're being hunted by a creature in a mask.
Whoa, that's racist, right? especially in Star Wars where there's so many different species. I mean, I love Adam Driver, but they should have added at least one really like just pure evil character. I mean, the Emperor doesn't count. Okay, like that was a last minute save for them. Like they really should have just made Snoke a good character right in the first movie. Like just make it a normal person, you know. Like it could have just been Andy Serkis playing a human. I mean, he's really stupid. This is why you gotta go to school. Like, this is just like a piece of the map. How are you gonna match it in there as they do in the end of the movie? If you remember, like what's this one's name? Like BB-8 puts its piece into R2D2s or something. Like, how is Kylo Ren planning to do that though? I mean, he's seen the other piece of the map. He knows how, like, where it fits in and shit.
Vader.
Mary Sue, once again, I'm fine with her being overpowered as long as she's an interesting character. Like, knowing who's doing something makes it a lot more interesting. It's better than just someone uses the Force to do this. I wanna I want a anime style OVA of what happened to that like stormtrooper once he was off the Force spell or whatever. Or does he ever get off it? I just want one of like everyone, like the Death Sticks guy, the Death Sticks guy, and like the two stormtroopers. Why did they need a Death Star for this movie? They really should have just not done that. It's so obvious. You know, sometimes it's so obvious when someone's gonna die. I don't want to spoil any other series, but I mean, there's just the scene, right, where they're like saying goodbye to everyone or something in some way. They try to make it not obvious, but it's always so obvious. They're like talking about the past, and I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this. Like, you see a scene like this, and like, oh, he's dead, or she's dead, or whatever. Like, how do shields even work? And how does light speed even work? Like, just going in light speed can get you through it. You know, one of the like cool things about Star Wars and like other anime series is that people actually have to fucking train to get like better and stronger or whatever. I mean, I understand why Luke didn't go get stronger after a certain point. Like, at least for a while. Like, he learned that new technique in The Last Jedi and all that, but after episode 6, I mean, I guess he just focused on training other people and didn't like better himself, which is perfectly fine. But because Star Wars isn't about like the quest for strength, it's more about just good and evil and all that, and the quest for strength is just there like a little bit. Like, you don't need any more strength than what's necessary. That was really cool though, especially in the Empire Strikes Back, like the Empire Strikes Back, where the training scenes themselves were like pretty important. Like, it wasn't a montage. You know, they focused on things. It was really fun.
You must feel the force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Like, interesting to see characters work on things like that. Another reason I really like shonen anime, or maybe the reason I like this kind of thing, is Star Wars or shonen anime. I mean, I think I saw Star Wars first before anime, but you know, to see a character like Rey get to this point in strength without any training, like no training at all. She experienced the Force with like that lightsaber and Kylo Ren, and that was just it. You know, that was, and now she's look at where she is. She beats Kylo Ren in a Force fight. Who's gotten he was trained by Luke and Snoke. Like, what is she just like? whatever the opposite of an underdog is. You know, it's so annoying. And even in the Last Jedi, she goes to get trained by Luke, and like for a second, I thought that like she would get even stronger. I mean, they made her so overpowered in the beginning so that they could like skip to like an even like bigger level or something. I mean, Ryan Johnson is kind of an anime fan apparently, so I thought that yeah, like that's what I thought they would do, but they didn't. And Rey didn't get trained in that movie either, and she does even more difficult lightsaber fights. I mean, I guess it wasn't more difficult than Kylo Ren because he was just fighting like red people. Like, where's the struggle to like overcome other people's strength or your own weaknesses? Like, she really is a Mary Sue. She the complaints are just so valid, man, about her being a Mary Sue. You know, despite getting trained, Luke made some fucking mistakes. That's one of the reasons I like him, you know? Like, did they even think about characters? Don't they understand that that's what people latch on to? Like, you take a series like Dragon Ball and, like, it's cool that Goku can destroy a planet. You know, as a kid, like, I would go tell my friends, yeah, Goku can destroy a planet, isn't that cool? Or like the same thing for other characters as well. But the thing about Dragon Ball that kept people interested in the series was that the interesting part was the fights themselves and the characters involved in the fights.
And I don't care if you're a million times stronger than me! Mark my words, I'm not going to let them down!
It's one of the reasons I fucking hate the Tournament of Power, but because I just didn't care about any of the characters. It's like you take, I guess a better example is Hunter x Hunter. Like Netero versus Meruem. Like that fight was so interesting. Or any fight in that whole show. Because you just care about the characters.
その作業は何時なれとやってみせよ世にはかなう老衆の兵士よ頼むぞ頼むからその前に成功が果ててくれるなよ
笑うかよまあわしも楽しんでるからお互い様だ
The force power on itself, by itself, isn't that cool. Isn't it cool that you can do this with the force? I mean, like for 10 minutes maybe. Or if you're a baby, like it'll be cool for a longer period. Like everything gets this right. Even Harry Potter gets this right. And I don't even like Harry Potter that much anymore. I mean, I think it's good. Like some of the movies are good, but as a person who doesn't even care about Harry Potter as a series, like I can seriously praise it for having like actual characters that are fighting and I care about. Something that this fucking fails to do. Okay, maybe I'm trashing it a bit harshly. I mean, I do care about Kylo Ren. But he's the kind of character that's just not complete. Like, he would have really benefited from there being a movie where he was trained by Luke. And, you know, like if Snoke was a good character, those are just all you like really have to do. Like, that's it. It's so obvious. What, like, Kylo Ren sensed Han Solo, like, coming out to the planet, but he can't sense him here. You know, maybe people who know a lot about Star Wars can explain that away, but like you have to be fair. Like the Force is so poorly defined. It really is. It's the most simple, not simple I guess, but just the most confusing power in any franchise. At first I was kind of impressed by this scene. You know, when I first saw this movie, I was really young, so and it was at the time where I would like hate any movie where a character I liked died. But then, you know, as I got used to like actually praising series that killed characters. I look back on this and I was like, wow, that's kind of impressive that they did that. But then you fucking look at interviews and you realize that Harrison Ford asked to be killed, and that just that just takes so much out of it. And Kylo Ren is such a little bitch that they had to have like someone like a stronger personality as a villain. Like, I mean, Kylo Ren's great, but they had to add at least like another one. Hux doesn't count. I mean, can we just have a Sith Lord who just doesn't associate themselves with like a fucking government and is just evil for like some dumb reason? Like if Jabba the fine, that's a bit too much, but like, have you seen like the Oral Knots abridged version of Star Wars? Like, once again, why do they care so much, Fine, back on topic. Like Oral Knots abridged version of Star Wars. Like, it's kind of funny. And in that, the Jedi were just people who like they just did drugs and like had fun. Like they were kind of people that like everyone in the galaxy just kind of hated. Like they were just like a bunch of fuckers, basically.
You want to buy some death sticks?
You don't want to sell me death sticks.
I don't want to sell you death sticks.
You want to go home and kill yourself.
And that's what I was thinking of. Like, why can't a Sith Lord just be like that character? I mean, there has to have been at least one of them. Like, they're not all delusional dictators, right? I mean, not all of them cared about that because they are beings. Like, the Sith Lord isn't a species. I mean, that's another thing. Like, Star Wars is so limited like that. Like, you can't have something like, you can't even imagine something like that. Sith Lords, like, they have to be part of a government. And Jedi have to, like, fight it or whatever, I guess in that way I praise the prequels. Because in that it was a bit different. Like, the Sith Lords were trying to get to be the government. But once again, like, that was their motives. It was the same characters, but... I mean, it was literally the same character, but I do praise them for putting the Jedi in like a sort of a different setting. I mean, even though it was a setting that I didn't like for the Jedi, I mean, sounds kind of contradictory after I asked for something different. That's just that specific, like, Mace Windu, like, just sitting on his ass, Yoda just sitting on his ass, just criticizing everyone. Why doesn't he just kill him? Like, he could have just used that opportunity to kill him, like, easily. Just force choke him, dude. I've seen you do it before. Okay, this scene is badass. If you're a baby, perhaps I could agree. It would be badass if Rey was a good character. I do appreciate all the like trees getting cut. That makes the lightsabers seem a lot more like dangerous. Like they actually interact with the environment in a nice way. I mean, this movie is technically really good. Like all the shots. I mean, all the effects and all that. And that was like the part where she just jumps all over the rocks and like does a fucking roll. I mean, they could have done more with that, I mean, I guess Rey should know a lot about parkour because she like went through many Star Destroyers and shit exploring. So if she had that edge over Kylo Ren of just parkour, like she just fucking climbed everything. Why is Kylo Ren so dumb? I mean, he's honestly the dumbest character. What the fuck is he waiting for? Like, does he think she's gonna say yes? So I guess... See, once again, like I keep going back to Force being a confusing power.
It is time to complete his training.
Oh, this was exciting. Like, they were gonna actually do training. But the training turned out to be just getting Kylo Ren to kill Rey or something. That's fine, I guess. But I mean, I was just excited to see training, like Jedi training. I mean, they've done like two little like training things. I mean, there's a training with Yoda, and there's a like quick little thing with Obi-Wan, like teaching a little thing to Luke at the beginning. I mean, even in the prequels, they skipped over those 10 years or whatever. I mean, people keep criticizing that, and it's really valid. Like that was the character growth thing, right? Oh God! I think cinema since pointed this out. I mean, all they really need is one dot. Wait, do they have to go in that exact line? I really do think this island is cool. I mean, like even the porgs don't like they don't annoy me. Like, they really don't like. When I first saw the trailer, the one with the porg in it, I didn't even notice it. Like, it was just there. And then it was just like everyone else talking about it, that like even that I wouldn't have even known what they were called. I mean, how does anyone even know what they were called? Did Disney tell them? Probably, but like, I mean, why do people hate porgs so much? But I mean, even the green milk. Why do people hate that Luke did that? I mean, I'm no fan of The Last Jedi, but I mean,
I'm solo, I'm Han Solo, I'm Han Solo, I'm Han Solo, solo. Picking up my blaster, putting it on my side. I'm jumping in my Falcon, whoop, me at my side. I'm solo, I'm Han Sonic.